What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hazbin Hotel Season 2 has dropped. It has completed. We got all 8 episodes, and we're going to talk about it. Of course, if you haven't caught up to the latest episodes of Hazbin, please note there will be spoilers ahead.
Oops! Spoilers.
So just to play catch up with where the season starts, this is right after the last extermination attempt from Heaven. The hotel has become a lot more popular. Heaven has become a lot more concerned, and Vox and the V's are trying to rise to power. Now, overall, I thought this season was good. I think I had a lot more complaints about this season than I did the last season, and we'll go through that as I talk about it, but just as an overall rating, I'm giving this season a 7 out of 10, and I would give the first season 8 out of 10. I thought the plot was very enjoyable, but it kind of got rushed towards the end. Certain aspects didn't get as much light as they were highlighted to have at the beginning. Things like Abel and Lute's storyline, things like Velvet and Valve's storyline, and some of the Hotel Denzins, their storylines, all kind of fell to the side for a bigger overarching plot, which I think got wrapped up far too fast. The music, while good, I felt like wasn't as memorable as season 1. When it came to season 1's music, there's a lot of stuff that I eventually added to a playlist that I played normally, and with season 2, there's just none of the songs hit me as hard as they did from season 1. They're still good, mind you, they just didn't hit me as hard. And essentially, I would have just liked to see them either get more episodes or extend some of these plot lines into more seasons. Not saying that they can't, and I even think that with season 3, we're expected to see more of the V's, more of Abel and Lute. Like, we're going to see more storylines that kind of got started here. I just feel like the setup for those storylines could have been better. But let's talk about the cast a little bit, because I think that's one of the bigger things that makes or breaks the episodes are certain characters. And we're going to start with Charlie, because I was starting to hate Charlie. And I can understand why people do. I think for me, it started leaning more towards frustration than it does hate. But still, Charlie made a lot of decisions in this season that would irk some people. And I think it takes some sitting down and thinking to realize that this is who Charlie is. If you look back at season 1, she was still making bad decisions because she's so tied up into making this hotel work. She's so tied into this idea, and she kind of feels like she's the only one who can do it, the only one who can get it going. So she has a lot of weight on her shoulders. And because of this, she makes a lot of rash decisions because she thinks in the end it'll work out. And I think watching it back to back, the more you see her make these decisions, the more irritated you get with her, to the point of where you're like, man, I hate this character. But I think she's purposely doing that. Like, that's how her character is supposed to be. And to a degree, I understand it, because she has so much she's trying to accomplish that it's kind of coming crashing down on her. And eventually we have Vaggie, who tells her that this is the case. And I think that's very important for the character, because it felt almost like it wasn't being acknowledged. It felt like Charlie was making bad decisions, putting people in rough spots, and then it just wouldn't be acknowledged. They wouldn't say that, why are you doing this? They wouldn't have her face the consequences of her actions. She would just do something, and then we'd move on to the next scene. But Vaggie eventually comes up and says, hey, the problems we're running into are your fault. Like, you gotta take a step back. You gotta realize what you're doing here, because you're putting a lot of us in bad spots. And that's huge for the show, because we need that to make Charlie realize that, yes, you're making bad decisions. Yes, you're doing things that actively hurt your goal. And I think as long as that's acknowledged, that makes it a bit easier to stomach. It's still frustrating for sure, but easier to stomach. And there's no way I can really hate on Charlie, because she has what I think is my favorite scene, might be of the entire series so far, in Danny Doobad. I think Danny Doobad, the entire scene with Danny Doobad is just gold. Like, from her to Husk, it reminds me of like El Tigre, kind of. I think Dr. Chipotle, how just over the top she is with Danny Doobad. It's so good. It's so good. I don't know why that scene in particular gets to me the way it does. I love it. Let's talk about another character, my personal favorite, Alistair. Because with Alistair, I also had issues with him in this season, and he's still my favorite character. I felt like he was less of himself. When you look back at pilot Alistair, he was almost unflappable. There was nothing you could do to get under his skin. He always had that same dapper demeanor, no matter what he was doing. And I really like that about him. When you saw in season 1, it kind of wore off a little bit. He became a lot more, I guess I would say, human. And I mean, that makes sense. He's a sinner. He used to be a human, so he has like human mentality. So it's not out of place for him to have these kind of emotions or have like these kind of reactions to things. It felt like it was straying away from what Alistair was originally set up to be. Not necessarily a bad thing, just different. I think with season 2, they exaggerated it a little too much to where he feels almost like every other sinner. And I kind of like that he was unique in a way that he didn't necessarily respond like that. But it seems like things get under his skin more. He's swearing more. He's like reacting more. It just feels like he's becoming more of a normal character than this unflappable character that we kind of built him up to be. Which, again, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know people like that. People probably like seeing him more emotionally charged. I kind of like the old Alistair. Again, he's still my favorite character. And honestly, everything he did in this season pays off in such a fantabulous way that I'm okay with kind of like the emotional stuff. And also, Rage Bait Alistair is such a good time. Every time he's on screen in his little wheelie chair, just causing all kinds of havoc. Oh, good time. And I think that's one of the things that I have to commend this season for is that the humor. The humor was really good. Like, the show did a really good job of capitalizing on characters' humorous points and bringing those to light. I love that so much. And it also highlights kind of a different side of Alistair because we knew that he was powerful and we knew that he was threatening. We knew that he was intelligent, but we didn't see that as much. We kind of just saw him play the background. This season brings a lot of light to how just cunning he is, and it's a good foil between him and Vox, who I'm going to talk about in a second, where both of these characters are strong, they're smart, they're cunning, but there's a difference between how Alistair handles things and how Vox handles things. And so let's talk about Vox, because I feel like he became really cool just to not be cool anymore. You know, you have this character who's constantly fiending for Alistair's approval, but he also has this dream of being top dog. And I feel like these two things are his driving force and what makes him go forward and forward and forward. And he builds up this strength, he builds up this army, he builds up this following where he is actively getting the strength. He has everything he needs, but his ego is so unbelievably massive that it lets him make some of the dumbest decisions that he could make. Where he captures Alistair, like he gets Alistair as a captive, and he keeps Alistair around wherever he goes because he wants Alistair to see him win. But every time Alistair is around him, Alistair rage baits him, and he falls for it every single time. He is never not fallen for Alistair rage bait. And it just keeps happening. And of course, he doesn't really understand what's happening, which is crazy because of how cunning he is, but just because of how much he wants to rub it in Alistair's face that he's winning, he's kind of looking past all that stuff. To the point where we get to the end of the series, and Alistair's rage baiting comes around full circle in that Vox kind of got played by a monkey's paw technicality. Or it's like, because you really weren't listening, because you didn't consider the most cunning sinner in all of the Pride Ring, you didn't think that he might have a plan in mind. You thought that he literally just submitted himself to you for no reason, and that was your undoing. It's all your ego. And that's the huge difference between these two, is that they both have massive egos. They both think so highly of themselves, but Alistair knows how to hide what he's thinking. And he talked about that in season 1, where he wears that smile all the time because it's his power. It keeps people from knowing what he's planning. It keeps people from knowing how he's feeling. It keeps everyone out, and it keeps him in charge. And yeah, he was right. Kept him in charge this entire time. Even as a captive, he was in charge of the entire thing. And it comes around so perfectly. And one of the other issues is that some of these other characters in the show, they kind of fall to the wayside. Like the other Dens in the hotel, like Husk, Cherry Bomb, Angel Dust, Nifty. They really don't get as much shine. Like Husk and Angel, they kind of get their own episode going on. Cherry's got her thing with Sir Pinchus, which eventually comes to fruition. Nifty's just there, but they really don't get any focus unless there's something that ties them to the main plot. Like they don't have their own side stories that really go on outside of Husk and Angel. I feel like Baxter was solely added as a plot device, and it's not the worst thing in the world, but I felt very underwhelmed when he was just okay with being a plot device pretty much, where he was like, yeah, I have all the answers to all the questions and I can do all that for you with no payment, with no, like, I figured there might be some kind of like double-edged sword here. Like, he's doing it, but he's doing it for himself as well. No, he just did it to be a friend. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Why is that your character? I wish he would have been fleshed out a little bit more to make it seem like he actually did care or actually did belong. It really felt like he existed as a plot device. Lucifer being my second favorite character, I felt like was a little underwhelming this season as well. They really played up how much a fool and how like a bumbling dad he can be. And I get that that's kind of part of his character. I would like to see him, I don't know, be competent at least a little bit. And one thing that I really thought was amiss was that we had Lucifer here and we had Sarah here in one area where Lucifer and Sarah were together in one spot and could have said anything to each other. And of all things, like when you have this army of people who want to get back at you, and you know the king, the leader, you know him, you can speak with him, you know why he's down here. You have no interaction with him whatsoever. Whether it be like an interaction to ask him to do something or be a directive to get the people in line, you don't have any kind of conversation with him whatsoever. I think that was a huge miss. I would have loved to see Lucifer talk to Sarah and other like denizens of heaven and just have some kind of communication there to realize what they did to him and why he can't do anything for this. I think that would have been huge. And then we can talk about Velvet, my third favorite character, because I felt like she got shafted as well. Now, this season was supposed to be about the V's. It very quickly became about Vox, and that's kind of, that's the rise and fall of the season was Vox. But I feel like we were supposed to care about Velvet and Val enough to where when Vox was mistreating them, that was supposed to hit us more than it did. I feel like whenever that would happen, we'd be like, oh, Vox he's like causing rifts, he's causing bubbles. But it was never that we felt for those two. It was just that we were acknowledging that he was causing a rift between them. I wanted it to be like we actually feel for some of these characters. Like at the very least, Velvet. I don't care about Val. I wanted to know more about Velvet because throughout this, like she was still holding up a lot of the V's day-to-day business. Where like Vox was the face, Val was just there being useless, and Velvet was in the background like keeping things running. And so I was really hoping that we got more of her. Like I could have gotten her backstory. I could have gotten more of her interaction with Vox. I wanted to feel by the end that they had truly been betrayed and felt some type of way about it. But instead it just felt like, you know, because they're a trio, they work together and that's it. The only reason that they came in at the end was because like Vox is part of the trio. It didn't have as much impact as I felt like it could have. And that's one of those things where the season felt rushed. Like if we had taken more time to establish their whole grouping, like how did they come together? Like how did they meet? How did they decide to work together? How have those years been since they've been together? That would have been really cool stuff. And I'm guessing that season 3 is going to have some of that. I would have loved it more here. It would have made the entire Vox kind of storyline a lot more promising. I think one of the things about the plot that kind of made it a bit redundant is that it was all miscommunication. It was a lot of people just having like all kinds of these actions that they would commit. They wouldn't talk it out though. Like when Charlie's having any interaction with anybody, she misses key points that would get the plot moving a lot faster. And I understand that for plot convenience, we're leaving out these parts, but that's kind of like the deal is that we're going to have this conversation. We're not going to say the important stuff. We're going to say things that intentionally make the situation worse, and then we're going to leave. Like that happened very frequently. And to be fair, it's in theme with Vox, where Vox's whole thing is spreading misinformation, tying the truth around, turning it up to something that he can use on his own. So in that way, it's very fitting. But I think in some aspects, especially where Vox isn't involved, things should be clearer. I can understand like you having a conversation with someone else where you hash out all the details and then you go to Vox and it gets twisted. But the fact that it's twisted before it even gets to Vox is an issue. And the final thing I want to talk about is the songs, because like I said, they weren't as memorable as the ones in season 1, but they were still very enjoyable. My top 3 are probably going to be Don't You Forget, the reprise. I really like the tune of that one. Something about the old-timey tunes of the songs really get me. So I really enjoyed that, especially Alistair's little parts. I think that's what sold it for me. This is the song that of all the songs of the season, This is the one that I might go back and listen to. Like I'll play it on YouTube when I'm sitting on my computer. This is the one. This is my favorite. Second would be Gravity. I think Gravity is just really well done. A solid song. That's one of the songs they dropped before the season dropped. And I mean, it's good. It's a quality song. And then third is Clean It Up with Nifty. I think that song is really cute, really catchy, really likable. It's hard to not like that song, especially when she does like the little anime bit. I think they did that very specifically to touch on the weeb part, and it worked. Honorable mention goes to Hear My Hope. And with Hear My Hope, it's got a lot of different sets within it. Like it's not just one song through and through. It's got a lot of different breakaways, a lot of different parts that kind of combine into the one song. And when I say Hear My Hope as an honorable mention, I mostly mean the part with Abel and Lute, and then the part with Alistair. The main song, the original song, I think is fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it's the other pieces that make this song better. But yeah, overall, I feel like this season, it was still good. I think it had a lot of weak points, and I think what was happening is that we're setting up stuff for the new seasons, and we're trying to make it a bit more condensed, because I think when they were doing season 2, there were still questions about like season 3 and 4, if they were going to merge with Hello Boss. Like there were still some questions here, and it probably showed up in production a little bit where they had to make sure some things were closed, some things were open, just to make sure they have longevity. So I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna like hate on it. I just think some things could have been done better. It was still enjoyable, still liked it. And honestly, I think I felt a bit better about the season before the last 2 episodes. I think the last 2 episodes were kind of brought down my rating just because everything felt rushed. Otherwise, I think, a really solid show. Don't forget to let me know what you thought down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.